In the studio with me now, I have an economic analyst who will be providing some perspective to the development, especially on how we got here. Dr. Terfa Ibrahim joins me in the studio. Doctor, welcome to the studio. I really don't want to call you a soothsayer, but you made some of those predictions earlier in the year. So we've seen the previous administration's economic recovery and growth plan, and then we are seeing this administration's economic stability plan, if I'm right. But then again, how did we manage to get to this point despite all of these short, medium, and long-term plans that the successive administrations have had in place?
Well, thank you again for having me here. So generally, we got here as a result of failing to learn from the factors that drive inflation, and then understanding that when it comes to setting policy targets like inflation, exchange rate, economic policy matters. Understanding of economics, the principles, the fundamentals that drive these things really matter. We got here also because we are refusing to understand that the CBN has to be an institution that is independent of banking influence, professional group influence, but just principled based on understanding of Nigerian economy.
And you feel that it still suffers all of these things?
Yes, because from where we got it wrong in terms of the governance of our monetary policy is introducing former bank executives as CBN governors.
Okay.
The era of people like central banking in general is not unique to Nigeria alone. It's a global financial apex authority that manages money markets. The understanding did not come from politics. It came from the understanding that inflation matters and money supply drives inflation. So countries struggle to balance their velocity of money, having that understanding of the relationship between money supply, its velocity, and its relationship with prices and transactions. So from US, UK, Lord Maynard Keynes, the founding fathers of the International Monetary Fund and central banking in general, anchored it on economists that were drawn from universities, economists that have understanding of economic theory, what prices do when you increase wages, what happens to money supply when interest rate goes down. But the moment we started using past bank executives as CBN governors, they came from banks. Of course, the natural thing is they will sell their shares, but they still have allies, they have friends. They have interest. They understand that situation already. So it's important to get our central banking governance right by going back to the era where professionals head the institution of the CBN, so that inflation can be tackled from clear understanding. In fact, even the constitution of the constituting the monetary policy committee. Also, if you check the former in the past compared to now, you have less and less academic economists represented. What you have now are stakeholders, private sector, and career bankers. So when they are even debating macroeconomic situation, domestic and global, they are thinking of their constituency first.
They debate
private sector, yes. But academic guys, smart academic guys, from economics, from finance, from law, mathematics, statistics, expand it. I'm not leaving it only economics alone. I say, just
not run short of these academics.
Just professionals that when they sit down and look at inflation at double digit, all they are thinking is about what policy measures to introduce that we get our money, quantity theory of money right.
Doctor, do we lack these professionals that you're talking about, and why have we seen them gradually fizzle out of the monetary policy team?
First of all, Nigeria in general, and all the geopolitical zones, in fact, the 36 states and everything, do not lack professionals in any field, from medicine
including
to economics,
academics,
to law, to sports, to even football players. But the thing is, it's important to understand that, in fact, that is even why the CBN has its own acts. It took the understanding of the need for the CBN to be autonomous and independent in operations and policy implementation, for the National Assembly to allow the CBN to have its own act, so that the CBN governor and the MP and the management in general have that financial policy autonomy and operational independence. So the moment will begin to allow central banking governors to be determined by political alliance, already you are already violating that principle to allow the bank operate autonomously. And it's also important to also ensure that the governance framework for the CBN, which is its act, do not allow CBN governors to be in politics in any form or shape.
Okay. Doctor, now what an average Nigerian watching the TV screen right now is thinking of is how all of this would translate to the reduction in the cost of a mudu of rice from 2,700, 2,800 to maybe 1,500 naira as it used to be. But then again, we've seen two things occur. First of all, an act by the National Assembly to amend the 2019 wage bill to capture the 70,000 naira minimum wage. We've also seen them pass for third reading, an additional 6.2 trillion naira to augment the initial 28 trillion naira that now leaves the budget at around 35 trillion naira. And we've also seen the CBN, increase interest rates by 50 basis points from 26.25% to 26.75%. All of these, what implications do they have to real life commodities?
So what is playing out there is fiscal and monetary policy. That's why I said this thing is all about economics. What we have in the country is double-digit inflation, hyperinflation on the monetary side. What the National Assembly has done as part of our overall broad-based fiscal management process is to expand the capacity of the budget, expansionary public spending.
Yes.
Now you have expansionary public spending with an inflation, on an economy that's already overheated by inflation. The CBN will always react by raising interest rates, which is what they did in the last Monetary Policy Committee meeting.
And what is the implication of this?
So the implication is that we have expansionary public spending so that government will have money to introduce social intervention programs, cushion the effect of spend more into the economy to help address aspect of the economy that requires funding. But that money that is pumped, that expectation, in fact, the very moment that it was announced that National Assembly has passed that budget, already the rational expectation is that inflation will also want to go up. So the central bank wants to react by countering that effect with tight monetary policy by increasing the interest rates. Now, the amendment to the Minimum Wage Act also that raised minimum wage from 30 to 70 also have a wage expectation effect on inflation. So it's about inflation, it's about money supply, it's about balancing government spending and what the central bank is doing. So for the everyday Nigerian that is looking forward to see price of goods and services reduced, that expansionary fiscal move that the National Assembly has done in collaboration with the government should include projects or programs that will address the sources of the inflation. Inflation arises when aggregate demand is more than aggregate supply. So government, the food demand for food, those food components that is making us experience increase in food inflation, government needs to import. And when I say import, I'm not talking about removing import subsidy.
Leave the doors open.
You have to import. Economics is about no country is an island anymore. I've always said the way we will be happy to see Ghana, South Africa, US, UK buy our own kwili, buy our own Ankara, buy our own Dawa. The same way they also want us to buy from them. The moment you put that stance of you want to close your border the way we did with Buhari, Benin Republic, Cotonou, they will retaliate. Trade is one place that war takes place in an economic roundtable. So the moment we are closing our border, they are also retaliating. So what Nigeria is facing right now is a situation of trade war, whereby we are paying for the era of closing border to Benin, to Niger Republic, and
Do you think it's archaic that the government is doing that in this time?
It was done, remember, and this is where I always try to be understand with this government. These things were policy somersault lag from the Buhari administration. It spills over in economic analysis. For anything monetary policy, there's an expected lag. A lag is the period in which that policy will begin to take effect. 1 year, 2 years. If you check what all our macroeconomic modelers in the CBN do, what macroeconomists do in universities, we play with this data to understand the lag of monetary policy on the real sector of the economy. Fiscal policy may also have its own kind of lag that goes from 2 to 3 years. So if all those, then imagine closing trade, closing borders, for more than 1 year. Even when the border is reopened, the period it will take for the players in that space to reintegrate and readjust may take 4 to 5 years. So all these lags are playing out. Fiscal policy, bad fiscal policy lag, bad monetary policy lag, bad trade policy lag from the Biden administration, not tinubu.
All at the same time.
This thing, we're looking like 5 to 6 years. This is our central bank as policy analyst knows this thing. In fact, to be fair to our leaders, CBN governor, ministers, and they also know. But you know, sometimes when they say these things openly, it can trigger a kind of shock. So they want to be very careful. So we understand. So, but our own point is for the point I'm making now is for people. It's important for people to understand what is happening to the Nigerian economy, so that it will help douse the tension. Some of this push for this protest is coming because people don't understand how policy process works and the lead lag effects that accompanies government policy. Yes, so government needs to talk more to help. I like the way government is saying, oh, please dialogue with protesters, please give us more time. But there's need for more engagement so that people understand where the need to wait is coming from.
The federal government, through the tax reform committee that was set up by the president, has in some way managed to reduce the number of taxes from around 52 to 10 so far. I don't know whether implementation is on right now. But then again, an average businessman in Nigeria has gone through a roller coaster of emotions in the last couple of years. Do you think that all of these will take as much as this 5 years for him to begin to understand, you know, the business climate as it is? Because it's changing, and even Dangote himself is not immune from the pressures and the shocks of these set changes.
So the challenge is for the point you made earlier regarding the business environment. The context is this. For business people, any bad policy affects them real time.
Directly.
They lay off, they go out of production, investment becomes low, it translates to unemployment, it almost even leads to these factories. Their factories almost shutting down. They might be indebted to banks already. They need to still pay, you know, things like that. They're accumulating bad debt, so everything is run in real time. People, investors in the realm of people like Dangote understand these things. That's why he right now is sounding like a very typical Nigerian. Because economic units, whether consumers, investors, or government, are affected by these policies. So it's important to help this, to identify not just the Dangotes now, but big businesses across sectors, you know, based on the budget that's been passed now by the National Assembly. Find the sectors I would like to call too big to fail. Find them in sports, in agriculture, in chemical production, in oil and gas. Find them across sectors. Interact with Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Just show us the stakeholders. People, there are some businesses you can't just allow them to just collapse. So government needs to channel some fiscal spending into those sectors to help them stay afloat, so that they will not just shut down. The government needs to help them in some way. If you look at the CBN policy of increasing the interest rate, the monetary policy rate, which is a long-term interest rate. That long-term interest rate is like looking at the overall environment for banks to now start pricing their own, how much would be for cost of loanable funds, how much for interest rate for 300,000 loan, for 5 million loan. Banks will look at that overall picture and start pricing. And all these banks also have economists. They have quarterly financial publication, all the banks, without mentioning names, so I won't market anyone, but they all have. So once the CBN announces that policy, these smart guys and ladies sit down to analyze, okay, this is the long-term interest rate we have. How does that affect our own operation, and how do we need to adjust our own interest rate? So immediately, the first people to feel it will be Manufacturing Association of Nigeria and all other small sectors. And even these days, people that get personal loan, small loans from their banks through all these quick bucks and those kind of banking financial products. So it's a whole long challenge it's a domino effect of bad policy. However, what the National Assembly has done now is a step in the right direction. Like you rightly pointed out, I remember now, the effort that the Presidential Tax Reform Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee, they've done a lot to help ensure that interest rate is singled down. They were even in the forefront in ending this issue of that tax that the CBN wanted to bring regarding security tax. National Assembly has also done a lot. They announced reductions in their pay for the next 6 months. They also quickly passed minimum wage. But what I'm saying is, as good as all these things are, they will take time. For example, that minimum wage act that has been passed will not start from this month.
Of course it will not.
So government needs to be, in fact, collaborate with National Orientation Agency and just be on air every time. And I like the tempo already. The tempo of engagement is already nice. Please, the reaction, thank you for that word, it's already good. Give us time, but fill it up with explanation. And when I mean explanation, real-time explanation.
That Nigerians will understand.
Twitter space engagement, Instagram space engagement, Facebook space, so that those of us who turn radio, TV, phone, so as soon as you open your phone, partner with all the telecoms. Let them just be sending messages. This is what government is doing. No, please, give us time. Give us time. Meanwhile, do you know you can access 10,000 naira if you send this number to this number from your state government, and let people who benefit, let them be for real time, not theory.
Doctor, while a lot of people have been complaining about the cost of food prices and all of that, the federal government has, in one way or the other, tried to be proactive by, for example, 44,400 bags of rice in 740 trucks.
Yes.
Has been distributed across the 36 states of the Federation. This, some would say, is a good approach to dousing some of these tensions. However,
certainly,
some others have criticized this move by saying, if, for example, the federal government had used monies, used to procure these said items to probably kickstart a vocational revolution in Nigeria, maybe we would have seen some form of impact in terms of empowering people who would later empower others.
Already there are vocational institutions in Nigeria. Nigeria, we're not lacking in vocational institutions. Many informal, formal, even universities, colleges of education, they are vocational institutions already. So if government use money for vocational interventions now, the impact or effect on the people again will also take time. Because you need people to graduate before they start. So see the concept. That part that the government did by giving rice to certain local government is part of the measure that I think is good. Even though others may not like it, it's important to see that it's government's way of responding immediately. However, government should divest or expand giving those rights to new persons. They can use the existing people, but they should give it to new persons that can also help distribute these things. All these on social media influencers, all these people that are big in online stores. So that
a different approach.
So that real people are getting these things. Indeed. Because to be fair to the government, and when I mean government now at all levels, federal, state, local, and across arms, executive, judiciary, and legislature, whatever they do, they will do through either agencies or through people. It's now important to ensure that they include new stakeholders in their media or communication or active engagement team, so that you want to just go online and see people saying that, oh, I sent this code to this, I'm trying not to mention any name, to a particular online trading platform, and that has something like FGN on it, and I got this right. See it, see it. These things have to go viral. These are the So government is doing well, but they need to intensify effort to ensure that what they are releasing actually goes down to the people.
It's actually an explosive, always an explosive conversation whenever I'm with Dr. Terfa, but unfortunately the director is telling me that we've eaten enough time. And Dr. Terfa, always a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
We definitely hope to have you subsequently as you provide more analysis on Nigeria's economic development as it regards especially to its future. We'll be going on a break now, and when we return, it will be time to serve you what's on the front pages of national dailies here in Nigeria. Stay with us.